I spoke to the president on Friday. He just said to me, "Is this how you treat your best ally?" It's quite a powerful comment, isn't it? It's quite a powerful comment. So there's been too much going for too long. You might have noticed, Harry, that last year 500,000 people stopped paying the license fee. The year before, 500,000 people stopped paying the license fee. If the BBC doesn't now get a grip, get somebody in from the outside, somebody who has got a history and a culture of changing organizations, of turning them around, then I think what you would see within the next couple of years are many, many millions just refusing, just not wanting to have the license fee. The BBC has been institutionally biased for decades. I well remember the Wilson report 2 decades ago, saying the BBC were not covering areas like Europe and immigration with any sense of impartiality. And you could, add on to that net zero, climate change, all their interpretation of the horrors that have happened in Gaza, and now, of course, the United States president. We need to very much slim down BBC. When it comes to entertainment, when it comes to sport, and many other areas like that, well, they should compete against everybody else for a subscription model. That's the modern world that we live in. So the license fee, as currently is, cannot survive. It is wholly unsustainable. Which, by the way, doesn't mean I don't want a BBC. I think part of our global brand, I think the BBC is important. I think BBC World Service is actually very, very important. And I think the BBC should get back to doing news, but just to doing straight news. If it can manage that, it has something of a future. If it can't manage that, frankly, it has no future at all. My worry, Olivia, with the BBC is it employs its people from such a narrow segment of society that I don't think they think they're biased at all. It's just the worldview of people the BBC employ who happen to live in North London, rather than the view more broadly of what's out there in the country. That's our complaint. They've gone so mad on DEI and everything else, they're not reflecting the country we're living in. If they did reflect the country we live in, we wouldn't have the current crisis and the current problems that we've got. Well, if I was the President of the United States of America, if I was the person making sure that the United Kingdom had security guarantees that meant that it could be defended, whereas on its own it would be helpless, and I'd been stitched up on the eve of a national election. I mean, people talk about election interference. What the BBC did was election interference. If you put yourself in Donald Trump's shoes, I think you'll understand why, when I had a chat with him on Friday, he made his feelings on the subject known to me in no uncertain terms and not in a quotable form.
I think the board of the BBC certainly have questions to answer about how they have handled this. But I think the key issue for politicians today is, are they going to defend the institution of the BBC? It's a world-leading institution, the most trusted media institution in the world, and we should protect it. That's why I have written to the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage to see if they'll join me in criticising Donald Trump, who is undermining the BBC with his comments, attacking the leadership, calling BBC journalists corrupt, and with his press secretary suggesting that people should watch GB News. That's a level of interference in our media which is unprecedented, and I hope other political leaders will join the Liberal Democrats in calling President Trump out. Look, the BBC needs to deal with the criticisms. I've had criticisms the way the BBC has given far too much coverage for Nigel Farage and reform. So we can have criticism of the BBC, but within that we need to recognise how valuable an institution it is. It's world leading in its trust in it on media, and that's so precious to our country. And that's one of the reasons why people like President Trump and others like him, Nigel Farage, want to undermine the BBC. Well, the Liberal Democrats, I think, are speaking for the vast majority of British people. We value the BBC, and we don't want Trump's America to become Farage's Britain with a BBC that's been hit in the way that Donald Trump It's hitting the free press in America. There are people on the right wing of British politics and indeed in the White House who've been attacking the BBC for a long time. And it's part and parcel of the whole Trump-Farage approach. Have divisive politics, undermine free press, undermine freedom of speech. We can't allow Trump's America to become Farage's Britain, and that's why the Liberal Democrats will be firmly behind the BBC, despite our own criticisms. I've said the BBC isn't perfect, and we've had our criticisms, but it is the one institution that's protecting British values from a full Trump takeover, and as that very precious institution, Liberal Democrats will defend it. Of course, there's the odd mistake they make. I have to say, Donald Trump makes many, many more, as does Nigel Farage. And so the fact that Nigel Farage is basically teaming up with President Trump to criticise the BBC is shocking. It's unpatriotic, it's wrong, and it shows that he wants Trump's America, with his attacks on free media, coming to the UK. To extreme, the interference we've seen in elections has come from Nigel Farage's friend, Vladimir Putin. We've seen Russian interference in the most profound, appalling ways, and yet Nigel Farage calls Vladimir Putin the world leader he most admires. I think people need to see through Nigel Farage, see through Donald Trump, and realise what they're trying to do to our great country and our British values. Liberal Democrats won't accept it. I don't think the vast majority of British people will either.